distinguished guests, members of the press, colleagues, friends and students, wish you all a very good morning. Welcome to the Conference on International Relations, India and Development Partnerships in Asia and Africa, towards a new paradigm organized by Symbiosis Institute of International Studies, supported by the Public Diplomacy Division, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. I am Sulakshana Sen, faculty at Symbiosis School for Liberal Arts, and will be the official Master of Ceremonies for the inaugural session today, as well as the keynote address tomorrow. As you are well aware, the conference is going to be inaugurated by the Honorable Shri Muhammad Hamid Ansari, Vice President of India. He is also our chief guest for the day. His Excellency Mr. Hamid Karzai, GCMG, President of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, will be our chief guest tomorrow and deliver the keynote address. In this august audience, we also have a galaxy of eminent people from 20 different countries. For security reasons, as you are well aware, the audience has been requested to be seated 45 minutes prior to the arrival of the Vice President. As organizers, we realize how taxing that may be and would like to keep you engaged during this period. On this very campus, we have two very creative institutes, Symbiosis School of Photography and Symbiosis Institute of Media and Communication. I would now like to request Mr. Anupam Siddharth, Director of Symbiosis Institute of Media and Communication, UG, to come on stage and engage the audience meaningfully. Mr. Anupam Siddharth.
Thank you. Hello everyone, and welcome to this beautiful campus. For some of you, possibly for the first time. You see this campus today teeming with hundreds of students, staff and faculty members of the Institutes of Business Management, Media and Communication, Telecom Management, Banking and Finance, Engineering, Biomedical Sciences, Research and Innovation, and of course the University Office. My mind races back to about a decade when we came to this campus for the first time. The only living thing that we saw here was a deer. Well, a lot has changed since then. This campus is sort of a jewel in the crown for us, and possibly for that reason, we hold some of the most important events, functions, and programs here, which may be a little unfair to our students and faculty of the other campuses, but we do make up for it by inviting them to conferences like these, seminars, workshops, faculty development programs, and of course meetings. In the recent past, we held a very important function over here on the 1st, which was the convocation of 2013. The Symbiosis Studios, which is housed on this very campus, put together a film which showcases glimpses of the life of the students in the past 2, 3, 4, or 5 years that they have spent here. Have a look. Tech team, please roll the convocation film. Lights.
Students of Symbiosis International University, congratulations to all of you. You have stayed on the university campus and other institutions of Symbiosis elsewhere for nearly 2 years. I hope you enjoyed your 2 years of your life. You all know the story of Symbiosis, and therefore I am not going to repeat it again and again. Let me only tell you one thing. Everybody has two births. One is a biological birth, when you come out of the womb of your mother. And second is a social birth, when you complete your education and get graduate certificates. Today, you are taking social birth. Please don't think for a while that learning stops after getting graduation certificate. In fact, learning begins.
Symbiosis is a multidisciplinary and multicultural university. We have students from all states of India and from almost 85 different countries. And I think when a student joins Symbiosis, this is what makes him feel a little different. You know, you have students from Africa, from different parts of Asia, from countries even like US and Europe. And I think this is what makes a student life in Symbiosis different. You know, they learn different languages through the Symbiosis Institute of Foreign Languages. They eat different cuisines in our cafeteria. In the hostel rooms, they may have a student from a different state or student from a different country.
So the spectrum of programs offered at the university is truly wide. And it gives the student an opportunity to really take courses from each of the various disciplines, giving them an opportunity to learn across disciplines. And I think this is one of the most wonderful features of studying at Symbiosis.
Parents who come to us and when they talk to us, they feel so happy. They tell us that their child looks so different, their child looks so confident, and I think this is what really makes us feel so proud. So why do our students shine out in public? Why do our students shine out when they go into the large society? I think this is the difference. The multicultural aspect, is the difference. And I'm so happy that, you go anywhere in the world. At some airport, you will have a student coming running to you and tell you that, he was in Symbiosis. There are so many countries where there are, ministers who have been Symbiosis students. In Mauritius, in Yemen, there are diplomats, there are businessmen. We actually prepare global citizens. I think this change in personality is because of their peers.
Over the years, Symbiosis has grown stupendously, and every program that has been introduced has actually inspired other institutes to start programs on similar lines. And I think that really is something that makes us feel very proud.
The story continues. 40 years have passed, and when I look back, I can see the journey of Symbiosis with all its ups and downs, but at the end I feel God was kind to me. God was kind to all of us.
At this convocation, we at Symbiosis wish you all the very best. I'm for sure that you're going to do extremely well in the careers that you have chosen. Please stay connected with this alma mater, Symbiosis International University.
Just around the Symbiosis studio is another very creative institution on this campus, which is the Symbiosis School of Photography. And if you're just wondering as to what do the students do over here, we have put together a collection of the stills that they have taken. Have a look at this one. Just roll the SSP film. 1080. There were a couple of other films we wanted you to see, but I think now we are approaching the real purpose of this function. And we have to remove the screen for security purposes. Anyway, I was telling about the genesis of this campus, and those who haven't been here should really visit this place during the monsoons. It's absolutely breathtaking. It's lush green with columns of clouds wafting through, with a rare kingfisher begging for your sight. And in the early days, when this was still in its infancy, we used to visit here every Thursday, which used to be our day off, but not that we didn't mind the fact that we were working on our days off, because it was quite thrilling. It was almost like visiting a hill station with one's own private farmhouse. And I, for one, was so well versed with the geography of this place that every time a dignitary visited our main campus on the Senapati Bapat Road, I was often asked to accompany them over to this campus. Now, the route that we took to this campus was absolutely bereft of any man-made object. And halfway through our journey, the dignitary would invariably turn around and ask me apprehensively as to where was I taking him or her. And I had to allay his or her fears, saying that, sir, ma'am, I'm not trying to kidnap you. Just hang on. It's going to be a breathtaking sight once you get to this campus. And today it is. So I guess we'll just wait till the dignitaries arrive, and does the tech team have some music to play on, maybe? We wouldn't need a screen for that. The dignitaries have reached the hill base, and they should be here in a couple of minutes' time, driving up. Let's start the proceedings. I'll hand it back to the Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you, Mr. Siddharth. I have just been informed that the President has already entered Symbiosis, so we are about to begin. He is, of course, being accompanied by the Governor of Maharashtra as well. A request to one and all before the official ceremony actually begins. Please arise to welcome the dignitaries on the dais. The police band will play the national anthem once the dignitaries reach their assigned seats. Please remain standing and honor the national anthem. After the national anthem, we will pay homage to the memory of Nelson Mandela by observing a minute of silence. The national anthem will be played once again towards the end of the session, or rather at the end of the session. Thank you. Also, I would just like to remind you that all the mobile phones have not been allowed during this session. They will be in other sessions. Please do keep them on silent mode and do remain seated during the sessions. There will be a break after each and every session, excepting, I think, track 3. The dignitaries are now here. Please arise to welcome them. I request the police band to please play the national anthem. Dignitaries on the dais, Honorable Shri Muhammad Hamid Ansari, Vice President of India, Honorable Shri K. Shankara Narayanan, Governor of Maharashtra, Honorable Shri Rajendra Gavitt, Minister of State for Tribal Development, Labour, Command Area Development and Horticulture, Government of Maharashtra, Dr. S.B. Muzumdar, Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, Dr. Vidya Yeravtekar, Principal Director, Symbiosis, Dr. Rajni Gupte, Vice Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, and Ambassador Sudhir Devre, convener of the conference. It is indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be here this morning on the first day of the Conference on International Relations, India and Development Partnerships in Asia and Africa Towards a New Paradigm, organized by Symbiosis Institute of International Studies with the support of the Public Diplomacy Division, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. I would now like to invite Dr. Vidya Yeravtekar, Principal Director, Symbiosis, the key force behind this conference, to give her introductory remarks.
The chief guest for the inaugural ceremony, Honorable Shri M. Hamid Ansari Ji, the Vice President of India, Honorable Shri K. Shankar Narayan Ji, the Governor of Maharashtra, Honorable Shri Gavitt Ji, Minister in the Government of Maharashtra, Dr. S.B. Muzumdar Sir, the Chancellor of Symbiosis International University, Dr. Rajni Gupte, the Vice Chancellor of this university, Ambassador Sudhir Devre, the Ram Sathe Chair of International Studies at our university and the convener of this conference, dignitaries in the audience, faculty members, invited guests, and my dear Indian and international students. This event is indeed a landmark event for Symbiosis. In the last 42 years, Symbiosis has witnessed several seminars and conferences. However, a conference on international relations to be inaugurated by Honorable Vice President of India today and which will witness the President of Afghanistan delivering his keynote address tomorrow, is an event which will be etched in the history of Symbiosis. When the concept of internationalization was alien to India, Sir, my father, Dr. Mazumdar, established the Symbiosis International Cultural Center way back in 1971 to get students from different parts of the world together to promote international understanding and brotherhood. I remember as a child, me and my sister have grown up in a house where an ailing African student was being nursed by my mother. At times, if a student from Thailand felt homesick, my parents would call him home to make a home away from home for him. My mother even learned Persian to make students from Iran more comfortable. My father started an English language teaching institute to teach English to students who came from non-English speaking backgrounds. From such a humble and small beginning, Symbiosis today has 45 institutions spread across 5 cities of India, namely Pune, Nasik, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Noida near Delhi. We have over 30,000 students from all states of India and over 85 different countries. Internationalization is the core of Symbiosis, and towards this, we have established the Symbiosis Institute of International Studies, an institution not just with the objective of starting academic programs in international studies, but more importantly, to initiate think tanks and conferences like this one to deliberate and discuss contemporary issues. We are indeed happy, sir, to have received such eminent speakers who are ministers, members of parliaments, diplomats, and even businessmen from over 20 countries, and also former Indian ambassadors chairing the various sessions over the next 2 days. I am sure these sessions will have meaningful discussions on the subject of development partnerships, which is so relevant in the 21st century. In a globalized world, we all know that it needs to be a symbiotic relationship, a relationship of interdependence between countries for the betterment of society. We are indeed happy, sir, that our university could bring the subject of international relations for discussion out of the capital of India, Delhi, to Pune, which is known as the intellectual capital of this country. We plan to make this as an annual event, and we hope to see all of you again next year. Wishing you all a very happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya, for your insight. I would now like to request our chief guest and all the dignitaries on the dais to light the lamp and inaugurate the conference. Known as the father of international students in Pune, Padma Bhushan Dr. S.P. Mazumdar, President of Symbiosis and Chancellor of Symbiosis International University, sowed the seeds of international relations by starting Symbiosis in 1971, an organization established for the welfare of foreign students. May I request you, sir, to please deliver your welcome address.
Good morning. The chief guest of the conference, Honorable Sri Ansari Ji, Vice President of India, His Excellency Governor of Maharashtra, Sri Shankar Narayan Ji, Mr. Gavit, who represents the Government of Maharashtra, Dr. Vidya, Dr. Rajini Gupti, the Vice Chancellor of Symbiosis International University, Sudhir Devri, the Director, Honorary Director of Symbiosis Institute of International Studies, the distinguished dignitaries, invitees, and my student friends. Today, we are assembled here to deliberate on a very important topic, and that is international relations. Sir, promotion of international relations and international understanding is the DNA of Symbiosis. Today, my mind goes back to 1969. I was a professor of botany at the Ferguson College and also working as the rector of boys' hostel. It was Diwali long vacation, and from a bungalow I saw a foreign girl in skirt going to the window of a boys' hostel room and giving something through the window to her boyfriend. This happened once, twice, thrice. And then the rector in me said that some affair must be going on. Some foreign affair must be going on. I went into the hostel, knocked the door, and what I saw depressed me. A Mauritian student was lying on the bed. He was suffering from jaundice, unable to walk even few steps. With great difficulty he stood up, and when I asked him what affair was going on, he said, "Sir, she is my sister staying outside the college. Because of long Diwali vacation, your mess are closed. And so my sister prepares food for me and passes tiffin through the window. And why through the window? Because girls were not allowed to enter into the boys' hostel." That Mauritian boy put his head on my shoulder and started profusely weeping. Believe me, sir, the tears of a foreign student was a turning point in my life. I became restless, I became depressed. And then I started finding out how many foreign students were there in Pune. In 1969, there were more than 1,000 foreign students from 32 different countries, all from Afro-Asian students. There are a number of problems, difficulties. The first problem they had faced in India was, instead of having a cultural thrill, they had a cultural shock. They had to face many problems of admission in colleges, accommodation in hostels, food, medical care, and whatnot. And then I started interviewing representative foreign students from different countries. I met one student from Ghana who was studying in the hostel of Film Institute of India. When I started asking him questions, he said, "Sir, I feel like running away from home, from Pune as early as possible." I asked, "Why?" "Because you Puneites are as color conscious as Britishers and Americans. When I go to the toilet, your Indian students will either close their eyes or turn their heads so that they will not see a black face in the morning, which was considered to be a bad omen. When I am traveling in the bus, there may be space besides me, but your girls will prefer to stand rather than to sit besides me." By and large, these were the problems of discrimination and neglect from foreign students. I asked myself, if that is the case, what impression they will carry when they will go home to their home countries. And so, sir, with the help of my past students, I found a small organization called Symbiosis. And why the name Symbiosis? Being a teacher of botany myself, I knew that symbiosis is a living together of two different organisms for mutual benefit of each other. So I thought Indian and foreign students may have different nationalities, different cultures, different customs. And yet, if they live together, they will develop some understanding, friendship and brotherhood. And that is how, sir, the Symbiosis was started as an international cultural center in 1969. Its official inauguration took place on 26 January 1971. You used to organize cultural get-togethers like Eid, Raksha Bandhan, Bhau-Bij, Diwali, Christmas, with a view to bringing Indian and foreign students together on one platform. But sir, after the events, again there was a lull, again there was segregation. And so perhaps myself being a teacher, I thought that education is perhaps the best medium to promote international understanding. So because they will stay together in the hostel. They will read together in the library, eat together in cafeteria, and learn together in classroom. And that is how, like a chrysalis, the idea of Symbiosis International Cultural Center metamorphosed into international university. Sir, this is a long journey of 40 years. And today, I am glad that Symbiosis has started Symbiosis Institute of International Studies. And this wonderful conference is perhaps the inaugural function of that institute. Some people advise me, why not start it in Delhi? But then Sujir Devre, Ambassador Prakash Shah, Ambassador and others advised me that we should start, Dilip Padgaonkar of course, they advised me to start it in Pune. Because Pune has a wonderful talent of retired persons, working persons. And that is how Symbiosis Institute of International Studies was started. I do believe, sir, that like Hollywood, the Edgewood will also become a soft power. I do believe that education can promote international relations, it can promote international understanding, which will ultimately lead to world peace. With these few remarks, I would like to read out a small poem written by an African child. I read. This poem was written by an African child and was nominated for the best poem of 2005. The title of the poem is Color. When I born, I black. When I grow up, I black. When I go in sun, I black. When I scared, I black. When I sick, I black. And when I die, I still black. And you white fellows, when you born, you pink. When you grow up, you white. When you go in sun, you red. When you are cold, you blue. When you scared, you yellow. When you sick, you green. When you die, you gray. And you call me colored. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was truly a moving speech. Ambassador Sudhir Devare is the Ram Sathe Chair Professor of International Studies at Symbiosis International University. He is also the convener of this conference. I would like to request Ambassador Devare to speak about the conference. Sir.
Honorable Shri Hamid Ansari ji, Vice President of India, Honorable Shri K. Shankar Narayanan ji, Governor of Maharashtra, Honorable Shri Rajendra Gavit, Minister of State for Tribal Development, Government of Maharashtra, Dr. S.B. Mujumdar, Founder and President, Symbiosis, Dr. Vidya Yarwadekar, Principal Director, Symbiosis, Dr. Rajni Gupte, Vice Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, Honorable Ministers in the audience, Excellencies, distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen. I am indeed honored to have this opportunity to give a brief introduction of the first International Relations Conference organized at the initiative of the newly set up Symbiosis Institute of International Studies of the Symbiosis International University with the support of Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. The main objective of this conference is to have a dialogue with multiple stakeholders to go into various aspects of India's development partnership, a subject of immense importance to all of us. Development partnership has come to acquire a central position in the foreign relations of all developing countries, including India. Right from its independence, India has been committed to a cooperative approach for development with fellow developing countries. India Technical Economic Cooperation, ITEC, was started as early as in 1964, and recently Government of India established a separate division in the Ministry of External Affairs called the Development Partnership Administration to streamline efficient and timely delivery of India's programs. Modalities of South-South cooperation can assume many forms, which may include trade and finance, capacity building in social sector, especially education and health, public-private partnership, the role of private sector in this, role of culture as well as that of media. At this conference, we hope to have in-depth discussions on all these and related subjects in 6 different tracks, which we'll start deliberating after the inaugural. We are privileged that eminent thinkers, scholars, policymakers from Asian and African states have come all the way to share their views and perspectives with us this morning. It is also encouraging that a large number of students across the country and a few from abroad have sent research papers. They numbered more than 200, some of which will be presented here. With the growth of emerging economies and decline in official development assistance (ODA) from developed countries, there is now a new paradigm discernible in South-South cooperation, for which the South's and India's active role would need to be organized. The UNDP 2013 Human Development Report talks of a new South Commission reflecting the strength and needs of the South today. At the same time, we need to see that the historic responsibility of developed states with respect to ODA does not get in any way reduced. As we stand close to the target date of Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, that is 2015, we must examine how post-2015 agenda should evolve. Developing countries would benefit a great deal by close coordination in this regard. We hope our consultations on this matter at this conference would be a useful input in the evolution of post-2015 development agenda, which is currently underway in various international fora, including the United Nations. We are really looking forward to input from all our eminent speakers that will go into the formulation of a new development agenda in the United Nations and elsewhere in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the clarity you brought in. I would now like to request Dr. S.B. Mazumdar, Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, to please felicitate the chief guest of the day, Honorable Shri Hamid Ansari, Vice President of India. I would also like to request Dr. Mazumdar to felicitate Honorable Shri K. Shankara Narayanan, Governor of Maharashtra. I request, sir, if you could please also felicitate Honorable Shri Rajendra Gavit, Thank you, sir. As is the Symbiosis tradition, the international students will present their national flags as a mark of honor to the chief guest. The countries in alphabetical order are Afghanistan, Angola, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Brazil, Burundi, Cambodia, Congo, Djibouti, Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Fiji, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Italy, Ivory Coast, Japan, Jordan, Kenya, Korea, Libya, Mauritius, Mongolia, Nepal, Niger, Nigeria, Oman, Palestine, Russia, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, South Korea, South Sudan, Sri Lanka, Sudan, Sweden, Syria, Tanzania, Tibet, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkey, Turkmenistan, United Arab Emirates, Uganda, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, Yemen, and Zimbabwe. I now request Dr. Rajni Gupta to please present the SIU flag to the chief guest. And I request Dr. Mazumdar to please present the UNO flag to the chief guest. The only person to be elected to the post of the Vice President of India for 2 consecutive terms, other than Dr. Radhakrishnan, Honorable Shri Hamid Ansari once notably said, "No citizen is apolitical, as a citizen, by definition, has to take interest in public affairs." It is with great pleasure I invite Honorable Shri Hamid Ansari, Chief Guest for today, Vice President of India, to address this audience.
Honorable Governor of Maharashtra, Shankar Narayanan ji, Chancellor of this university, Professor Mazumdar, Rajendra Gavit ji, Ambassador Sudhir Devre, Dr. Ranjini Gupta, Dr. Vidya Yarvadekar, distinguished guests, some friends in the audience, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to be here today for the inauguration of the International Relations Conference on India and Development Partners in Asia and Africa towards a New Paradigm, organized by the Symbiosis University with the support of the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. Coming to this conference today and to this campus has been a voyage of discovery. The theme of the conference is relevant to the emerging world scenario in which the older paradigm of international economic relations and cooperation is increasingly becoming obsolete. The panel of distinguished speakers will shed much light on a new approach that has been developed by us in India in regard to development partnerships with specific reference to Asia and Africa. Its results are noteworthy. I, on my part, would like to deviate a little from the principal theme to think aloud about regional cooperation in our own region of Asia, that is, South Asia itself. My reason for doing so is to address the apparent paradox of prospering regionalism in most parts of the world and its minuscule presence in our immediate neighborhood. This audience knows well that our world has been transformed into an integrated and independent global village. New technologies are blurring the political, geographical, and socio-cultural boundaries that have kept the world divided over millennia. Today, we are increasingly interlinked, have enhanced competition, and are beneficiaries of the globalized marketplace. The traditional North-South divide is being altered by the growth and development in the emerging economies of the South. The continuing economic and financial problems of the industrialized countries have led to a narrowing of the economic gap between developed and developing countries. As a result, the balance of economic power is slowly but surely shifting from Europe and North America to Asia and Latin America. Africa's growth performance has also improved hugely since the start of the 21st century. We still have a long way to go before the targets set in the Global Development Agenda are attained by the developing world. We also need to develop an international consensus on the post-2015 development agenda and its realization. The decline in the official development assistance of the developed countries has propelled the developing world to seek new and innovative sources of funds for their development agenda. In this regard, the emergence of regional economic integration in different regions of the world with integrated markets for goods, services, investments and technology is proving to be an effective vehicle for seeking prosperity. Regional cooperation, of course, had an earlier beginning and preceded globalization. Western Europe in the post-World War II period witnessed the formation of the European Coal and Steel Community and the Euratom, leading to the European Economic Community and eventually to the European Union. The EU has lived up to the expectations of its founding fathers and has transformed itself from being a purely economic grouping to a union of sovereign states enjoying an unprecedented degree of political and economic integration. This example has been emulated in varying degrees in other regions of the world. In Asia, the ASEAN and GCC are at different stages of economic integration, while groups like IOR-ARC, BIMSTEC, and our own SAARC are trying to move forward. In Africa, the African Union and the regional communities such as SADC, COMESA, EAC, and ECOWAS are doing concrete work. In Latin America, the Andean community, Mercosur, CARICOM, and CELAC, etc., have taken shape and are taking notable steps towards integration. North America has NAFTA and aspires to be a part of a future FTAA. Similarly, APEC and ASEM are intercontinental groupings that have been established to promote economic partnerships across continents. Other impulses are propelling new economic groupings such as transatlantic trade and investment partnership between the United States and the European Union, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade agreement between the countries of Asia and the Pacific region, are being promoted to boost trade and economic growth. What explains this trend towards regional economic integration? It is, in a word, competition-driven and a direct product of globalization. Economists explain its benefits in terms of economies of scale, increased local supply capacity, improved access to markets, enhanced foreign investment, integrated or harmonized treatment of trans-border trade issues, and better management of shared natural resources. Most regions of the world are endowed with their own physical, economic, and political geography, which poses challenges to economic development. In some, political borders are not aligned with economic and natural resources. National economies and populations, on the other hand, are generally small and have poor connective infrastructure. Regional integration and cooperation offers the means to overcome these obstacles and to be competitive in the global marketplace. Empirical evidence suggests that it also leads to dispute settlement mechanisms, to greater people-to-people contacts, and to better political relations between the involved countries. Examples of this are to be seen in ASEAN, the African Union, GCC, and some of the Latin American regional groupings. The one exception to this trend is South Asia. It brings forth three questions. One, why has regionalism failed to take off in South Asia? Two, what is the opportunity cost of this failure? And three, what is the corrective? Home to almost 1/5 of humanity and 2/5 of world's poor, South Asia counts for only 3% of the world GDP and has only around 1.7% share in global trade. It is confronted with major developmental challenges of poverty, inequality, illiteracy, disease, hunger, and homelessness. The region is endowed with a rich but fragile ecosystem, which is vulnerable to the high population density and major natural disasters such as floods, droughts, cyclones, earthquakes, etc. A joint and cooperative effort in addressing these common challenges should be the logical way forward for South Asia. Common geography, economic and ecological complementarities, historical and cultural affinities provide sufficient incentives for intensive regional cooperation. India's large and growing economy offers to states of the region a profitable destination for their exports and a competitive source for their imports, investments, and technology. A recent IMF study found that the spillover effects of India's increased growth to other SAARC countries were positive. An even greater incentive for enhanced regional cooperation is the management of natural resources such as water, which in turn can help in addressing issues of energy and water deficit and tackle natural calamities such as floods and droughts. A cooperative framework for these would prevent potential political disputes arising out of these. Given the cultural, social, and religious affinities, enhanced intra-regional travel and tourism will not only promote people-to-people contacts but contribute substantially to the regional economy through revenue and employment generation. Despite these potential benefits, however, South Asian economies remain the least integrated. Intra-regional trade, for instance, according to UNCTAD, has stagnated at around 5.76% of its total trade, compared to roughly 61.83% of the EU, 48.54% of NAFTA, 25.96% in the ASEAN, and 14.90% in Mercosur. Even in sub-Saharan Africa, with poor transport and telecommunications infrastructure, it scores over South Asia, with over 10% of its trade being intra-regional. Foreign direct investment among SAARC member states is minimal due to regulatory issues and a non-facilitative business environment. Intra-regional travel and tourism is also below the desired levels. Friends, as most of you would know, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation was set up in 1985. Progress towards its stated objective has been tardy. A telling comment on its work was made by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh at the 16th SAARC Summit in April 2010, and I quote, "We have created institutions for regional cooperation, but we have not yet empowered them adequately to enable them to be more proactive. The challenge before us is to translate institutions into activities, conventions into programs, official statements into popular sentiments. Declarations at summits and official level meetings do not amount to regional cooperation or integration. Regional cooperation should enable freer movement of people, of goods, services, and ideas. It should help us rediscover our shared heritage and build our common future. The 21st century cannot be an Asian century unless South Asia marches together." End of quote. Analysts have attributed reasons for immobility and low levels of intra-regional trade. These are: 1. disparity in size between India and its neighbors, with India accounting for 4/5 of the regional GDP by value. 2. Weak port and transport infrastructure. 3. Difficult business environment. 4. Apprehension of being swamped by Indian business interests and resultant damage to local industries. 5. Persistence of high levels of overall protection. 6. Restrictive rules of origin and destination. 7. Lack of coverage and commitment in the merchandise trade agreements. And 8. Persistence of negative list category as an impediment to free trade. Despite these, the question in the final analysis boils down to political will or a lack of it to further regional cooperation. Some scholars familiar with the subject have opined that India has remained a reluctant and hesitant participant in SAARC from the beginning, principally on account of the obduracy of one or two members of the grouping. Notwithstanding the merit of this argument, the fact remains that most issues in South Asia, namely terrorism, maritime security, health, environment, and economic growth, are transnational in nature, require coordinated responses, and make regional cooperation essential. India's experience of bilateral development partnerships in South Asia with countries as diverse as Afghanistan, Bhutan, Myanmar, and Nepal is sufficiently indicative of our capacity to undertake regional cooperation. In such an endeavor, the immediate or shorter-term commercial, foreign policy, and strategic interests must be balanced with our longer-term objective of becoming a regional and global actor of relevance and significance in a fast-changing world. It follows that an attitude of neglect or immobility on our immediate neighborhood will not enhance our capacity and may deny us options. Global observers have also noted our policy approach of developing cooperation with other regional organizations in and around Asia and have contrasted it with our studied neglect of SAARC. Some years back, former Prime Minister I.K. Gujral had posed a question: how to reposition South Asia as a community in the changing Asian and global context. He had observed that no member of SAARC can afford to make national security and national interest parameters narrow and ever shrinking, adding that we must enlarge the scope of our functional relations, widen the scope of our operations, create a huge space for positive interaction and sustained benefit sharing. It is evident that longer-term policy options and initiatives have to be a judicious mix of vision and realism. The vision for India is of a major emerging power working for a more equitable, peaceful, and cooperative world order in which all nations would reap the fruits of development. Realism, on the other hand, necessitates that we strike the right balance in the hierarchy of our national interests. One ingredient of this hierarchy is a peaceful neighborhood. An effective way of achieving it is through mutually beneficial cooperation with neighbors, an endeavor in which India is best placed to set the pace. Immobility, however, is not a desirable option. I wish the conference all success, and I thank the organizers for inviting me today. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for that enlightening speech. May I now request Dr. Rajni Gupte, Vice Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, to deliver her vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries on the dais, as this momentous inaugural ceremony draws to an end, it is truly a privilege to thank, on behalf of Dr. S.B. Mazumdar, the Chancellor of Symbiosis International University, and all of us, the esteemed guests present here. The Chief Guest, Honorable Shri Hamid Ansari, Vice President of India. Sir, thank you ever so much for accepting our invitation to inaugurate this conference. This is a very important event for our university, and it was a rare honor to hear your thoughts on international relations and the criticality of regional economic integration in Asia. Honorable Shri Shankar Narayanan, Governor of Maharashtra, thank you, sir, for your gracious presence here and your support to Symbiosis. Honorable Shri Rajendra Gavit, Minister of State, Tribal Development, Labour, Command Area Development and Horticulture, sir, we thank you for sparing the time to be with us here this morning. During the course of the next 2 days, we have several eminent speakers, ministers from various countries, academicians, corporate leaders, government officials, and other thought leaders. It is also our privilege that several former ambassadors will be chairing the various tracks across the 2 days. I thank all the speakers, the chairs, and everyone who has made this event possible. I take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. S.B. Mazumdar. He is a constant source of inspiration for all of us. Dr. Sudhir Devre, the convener of the conference, for his immense support. Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar, the principal director of Symbiosis, the driving force behind this wonderful event. The Ministry of External Affairs and other sponsors. An event of this magnitude is possible only with the support of several teams. The organizing team, the academic review team, the track leaders, the teams coordinating the entire event, the directors, staff, and student. The deliberations over the next 2 days, during the planned sessions and the informal interactions, will, I'm sure, give us much to treasure, and the memories of this event will be stored away for a long, long time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. May I now request everyone to please rise for the national anthem.